My name's Jordan Leach. I am a father of two, married to a beautiful wife named Hannah. And this is my testimony. I bought a motorcycle back in November, I think. It was probably not the smartest decision because my wife was telling me, oh, go ahead, pray about it. She wasn't feeling peace, but I was like, okay, I'll pray about it. And I never really did. I said I did, but I was afraid of that no. I didn't want the Lord to tell me no. So I ended up pursuing it anyways. I ended up buying the bike. And it was funny because when I contacted this guy, he was pretty firm on his price. I was like, okay, well, it's a little bit more out of my price range than I really wanted. So then ended up, I get the bike, I ride it home, everything's fine. First time on a street bike. I grew up on dirt bikes, so I was pretty comfortable with the bike. But then, getting onto the freeway, first thing, I was like, okay, sweet, this is, it's real. So it was a lot easier than I expected though. But within a week of owning it, the clutch cable snapped on me. So I had to float gears all the way to work and all the way home from work, which was awesome in Marysville traffic. So I was having to hit stop signs and push my bike and try to kickstart it and get it going and whatnot. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, so I had the bike for a few months, and I mainly bought it to go to work, save some money on gas, and insurance was a little bit more expensive, but overall it was just to save some money and also save on a little bit of time. I told this to Jesse the other day, where every time that I got on my bike to go to work, I would see my daughter standing at the sliding glass door. And because our driveway it used to go it was like a steep hill. So I'd park at the bottom, and I'd go up, and then I'd see my daughter just standing there, just waving. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, she is the most beautiful thing. I might not come home tonight. It's a real possibility that I might die tonight because of people driving the way that they do. And every single time I prayed Psalms 91, I would just think about her as I'm driving away. But I'm like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Whatever. So it was always on the back of my mind of whether or not I was going to get hit or not, because I didn't really act too stupid. Emphasis on too stupid. So, it was Super Bowl, February 12th. I left a buddy's house to go and hang out with a different buddy. So the first person's house that I was at was out in Chico. I was living in Orville at the time. But then I left from Chico back to Yuba City. So I basically just took 99 straight to Yuba City. And then on my way back to Orville, that's when we were talking about the Lord and everything like that, and just kind of more a little bit edifying, and I was talking to him about my concerns about different stuff. I can't even remember at the time. Probably my daughter, as per usual. And then ended up that he well, actually, what's funny? Sorry, I don't mean to break this back. On the way home from, and this is just a detail that sticks out to me like crazy. On the way home, or the way to Jesse's house, I seen this guy sitting on the side of the road, and they had their hazards on. So I pulled over, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on? What do you got going?" They're like, "Oh, we ran out of gas." And I was like, "Okay, well, have a gas can on me. I'm riding a bike. And he goes, oh, I got a water bottle, like a gallon water bottle. You can go ahead and fill it up. And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I could do that. So I drove back to the gas station, and the guy, I opened up the water bottle at the gas station, and I was like, it looks weird. Like, it doesn't look like water. And it looked like gasoline, but I didn't, smelt it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. So then I ended up on the way back, because I went the same way. I went through Gridley, or head towards Live Oak, and then go the back road that hits East Gridley Road. On the way home, I seen the same truck just like 3 hours later sitting on the side of the road. I just got this guy a gallon of gas. He was pulled up a little bit further, and I kept on thinking, I'm like, okay, well, if I was thinking about stopping, and I was like giving him a piece of my mind, be like, you dude, you're scamming money off people. You're sitting here just trying to, get a full gas tank off people's kindness. But I literally rode by, and I was like, you know what, God bless them. Like, please, whatever that looks like. And then I just keep on thinking, if I would have just stopped, and gave him a piece of my mind, I wouldn't have gotten that accident. I would have missed his truck by a good 5 minutes, So, but I was headed back. I told the officer 70, 75, because I'm not always looking at my gauge, so it's possible that I would have went a little bit faster than usual. But I was going right around the speed limit, and then I was riding, and typically my eyes are pretty on the road. Well, and I seen this car. For some reason, it was probably about 400 feet out, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, that looks a little weird. I was like a little bit weary of it. So then I just kind of, I didn't pre-brake. I just put my hand on the brake, and basically there was what I saw was these two cars in the number one lane, but they were very, very close together. I mean, like, super close. So I was like, okay, that's weird. So I didn't hit the brake, but I held my hand on the brake, and eventually I'm getting closer, and then all of a sudden the guy cuts from the number one lane all the way out in front of me. So he's headed towards me, I'm headed towards him. This is a 5-lane road, so with the suicide lane in the middle, and guy cuts from the number one while I'm in the number one, and basically cuts right in front of me. So technically I T-boned him. Went all super fast. People talks about slowing down, and there seems like everything goes really slow. No, sped up. It's crazy. But it was weird because the guy pulled out in front of me, like made his turn really fast, but then continued to drive really slow, as like right across the road. But anyways, I basically at that point, he started pulling out in front of me. So I hit the brakes. My rear brake locked up. I started fishtailing a little bit, but so all of this is pieced together from what I've seen and from everything that I have gathered from everybody. So from CHP, from the hospital, from my physical therapist, from everybody. So I hit the brakes, and I black out like a foot right before I hit his truck. I do not remember hitting his truck. I don't remember. I blacked out as soon as my tire was a foot in front of his truck. And from that point on, I've pieced together that my head went through his rear passenger window. So he was driving a Ford F-150. I think the extended cab is the one that has the half door. So a small window. So my head went directly through that window. And then my shoulder hit the frame of the truck. And basically what happened was it caused my arm to wrap around and hit his headache rack on the inside of my elbow. So it dislocated my arm and broke a little piece and then ruptured some ligaments. But with his movement and my movement, basically the way that it went was, he was going to my right, and I started to drift to my right because you go wherever you look. And I was looking at this truck because he's pulled out in front of me, and I'm, so, with our movement going like this, I think he, like, my neck, like, also hit part of the frame, and then it shoveled me off to the side of the road. And I think that impact was the one that kind of broke I had 2 vertebrae cracked from the accident too. So that's an assumption. I'm not sure. Could have been an impact on the ground. But the next thing that I know, I am laying there and I wake up and I see his truck stopped, and then he's out of his truck and he's looking at me, and then I black out again, and then I wake up and then I see his truck driving away, and then I keep on as just in and out, and then finally, I don't know how many times I was in and out, but I had the realization, oh, I'm in the middle of the road, like I need to move, like I don't want to get hit. So I try to move my arm, I try to like shovel my body off to the side of the road, but I can't move it. Like I felt like a blob, like I couldn't do anything. And then I look over and I'm like, okay, cool, well, we're on the shoulder, I don't have to worry. So ended up I had this lady coming up to me, and she was trying to talk to me, but I could barely talk. I was breathing, but I just couldn't get the words out. Like there was no way. And she kept on breathing there. She kept on calling. She kept on asking me what my name was. And I was starting to get pretty irritated because I couldn't talk. I just wanted to tell her what was going on. And then basically ambulance gets there and I start to wake up. But before the ambulance gets there, I want to say probably after the ambulance gets there, I just had this overwhelming peace just fall over me. And a lot of folks, they say, oh, you had the warm blanket of shock, you had the warm blanket of trauma, like you didn't feel anything, you don't feel any pain. I was like, yeah, I didn't feel any pain, but I experienced his peace, because the Bible talks about an unexplainable peace that only the Lord can provide. And I had that peace where I was like, everything's fine, everything's good. God, you were good, you were amazing. So anyways, I have the ambulance, looking at me, and it was literally, because it was literally a wall shielding me of people, just like CHP, ambulance, like everybody. They were this, because I was looking back at the photos and I was like, oh, it looks like a wall, like it looks like a wall of people around me. because they cut open my pants. They cut open everything. Everything. And I was like, well, I don't want to be exposed to the whole world. So, but I felt like there was a wall around me, and I look back at the photos, and there's literally a wall of people around me. It was funny because the whole time that I'm going, I was sitting there, they're telling me, oh, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look right. They picked up my arm and it fell sideways, and they're like, oh, that doesn't look right. And I said, well, praise the Lord. And I was on a high. It was crazy. I was sitting there, and I was just everything they said, I was like, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. And I don't know if it was getting to the point of where it was sarcastic or not, but I was still just trying to praise the Lord through it. So, ended up getting shoveled over to the into the back of the ambulance. CHP's trying to talk to me about the van. I told him, or about the truck. I gave him a horrible description. I said it was like a 93, box body Chevy, like 1500 with the rattle can paint job. That's word for word what I said. And he was like, okay, cool. And then turns out it's like a 98 Ford F-150. So it's like the complete opposite with the cleanest, nicest freaking paint job I've ever. So that was just funny. But the reason that they knew it was him was because they found my visor in the back of his seat. So when my head went through the window, my visor, my face shield came off of my helmet and then landed in the back seat. And then they took pictures and everything. But they ended up, anyways, I got to the hospital. I called Hannah on the way home because she was out in San Bernardino, so she was doing some training, and she's just has no emotion. And I'm like, I get this. I was like, I get it. Like, my wife isn't, she basically, I called her and I'm like, hey, I got in an accident. I'm fine. They had me all hooked up to morphine and everything like that already. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, don't need to worry. Like, I want you to finish your training because, like, it's important. We spent a lot of money. No. So, yeah, basically, she ended up doing most of her training that next day and then ended up heading home. But I was in the hospital. Ended up getting there, getting checked in. Hannah called Jesse because she knew that I left Jesse's house, and Jesse ended up heading down there. The accident happened at like 10:30, so he probably left his house at like 12. And then my cousin was there randomly, and my mom and dad ended up coming too on the first night that I got checked in. So, anyways, I'm in the hospital, and I'm going through all the scans, all the everything, and I end up getting into my room. Couldn't sleep at all. Couldn't do anything. So basically, what happened was I was wearing initially I was wearing a neck brace. I was wearing a cast on my right hand, or a brace on my right hand, because they said that I broke a little piece of my hand, but it wasn't too bad. So I took it off and I was able to find it was clicking a little bit. And then my left arm had a cast on it, and that was about it. But I had a few, for the most part, just the 2 scrapes right here and here. And then I have a forever hickey on my neck now because of the scar from the glass in the truck. But anyways, I ended up having all that stuff on, and my dad's walks in the room, and my mom's pissed but relieved at me, because I was probably going, I forgot to mention this, I was going like 70 miles an hour, and then probably slowed down to like 40 or 50. So it was a pretty big gap of speed. Like, people, I've heard of people dying, getting hit in the chest by a bird at 50 miles an hour. Like, he was thankful I was alive, but I was just sitting there. I'm like, you know what, man? I think I'm gonna get a Harley next. And he was like, you better not. You better not. I was like, sorry, bro. I can't help it. But my mom was like emotional roller coaster of, happy but angry and sad. And which makes sense. It's my mother. So so in the ambulance, because she wasn't there until like the second or third day. So in the ambulance, I called her on the phone and she just said, she said, okay. I was like kind of taken back. And I was like, okay. Well, I just want you to know everything's okay. Okay. It's just very, very quiet, subtle conversation. But I knew that it was just because she was like, didn't know how to say, how to cope with it. So, when Hannah got there, she ended up, just giving me a hug and not necessarily crying or anything like that. Just giving me a hug and, telling me that she loves me and everything like that, which I couldn't necessarily move yet at the point because like my hips were locked up from the crash. So it's like I could only sit up, just a little bit. But Frankie, so I think that was one of the harder parts for me, was because I was, used to taking care of Frankie, especially. So we had our second child, Irie. We had her 2 or 3 months before the crash. And, I didn't know how to, like, I couldn't hold Frankie because I had a 3-pound lift limit. So I couldn't, take care of her. I couldn't put her to sleep. I couldn't do all these other things. Like, it was really rough because Hannah had to do everything. And I just felt like such a pile of junk. So I was like, I need to help. Because that's just kind of what I do to keep our household, sane. So it was rough for her, I think, because it was just when she came back from vacation and then her dad's in a cast and can't do anything. And so it was definitely a little rough. And it's still rough, like, 3 months after the crash. Through all of that, through all of the not knowing, we've had there was something that really cool happened. Basically, I have some family members who haven't, spoke to my parents in years, 13 years, 12 years, however many years it is. They have not spoke a word. There's some kind of weird thing between them. And on the second day in the hospital, I was going, I was just laying there and hanging out, and then all of a sudden I had my mom and dad walk in, and I was like, oh, hey, how you guys doing? And then all of a sudden I had my grandparents who walked in who haven't talked to them in 13 years. It was just random, and it walked in, not even coordinated. They walked in like 20-30 seconds after my parents showed up there. So I'm like, okay, Lord, like, it was, the tension in the room got tight. So I was sitting there, I'm like, what's going on? But then they ended up getting together and having a good time and going eating lunch and saying, love each other and everything like that, and everything was cordial, which is a miracle in itself because it hasn't happened in so long. So there's just family restoration through it. There was, healing in my faith. There's been, overall it's just been crazy. But I was doing the almond tree school at the time, and we had already gone through the first week of almond tree, and I had my assignments and I had my reading to do and everything like that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard to read a book while you're on morphine and like oxycodone. Yeah, basically, I was trying to do my reading and then ended up not being able to go to church one day, but the next day I got out, or 2 days later, something like that. It was time for the next elementary class, and it was funny because Jared Osborne was my buddy, and he wasn't expecting me to be there, but he called me and told me that I was his battle buddy, and he basically nobody wanted to be there. That's just what every person is what they said about the first elementary was nobody wanted to be there. And then they said, well, shoot, this guy can go through a truck and I can come back. I guess we gotta stay here too. So I don't know. I think we've been really put through the ringer for the past few months, 6 months, 7 months, however many months it's been. And with the testimony of my daughter, with living in Orville, wanting to be here, getting in the crash, having to trust the Lord with our finances, and having to trust the Lord with our children, and with our housing, and with every single aspect of our lives. It's just really like it's allowed me to put full faith in God. Not as like a I'm better than you type deal. That's not at all. But like, just in all honesty, I feel like I've had to really like lay myself aside and figure out how to trust in the Lord, because it's been really hard to trust the Lord through it all. But He's had grace on us. He's had His mercy on us. And overall, God is just so good.